In the inbox late night, glowing screens see the light. Do-do-do, email, everything feels alright.
Let me just ask, out of the gate, is retention a big part of your business?
Yes. So the interesting thing with our company is, like, to me, retention, just the broad bucket of retention, starts with product. Just sort of silly to say this, but like, I had no idea how much drinkware people buy. A lot of product, once the actual features and benefits and the meaning of the product has like kind of been exhausted, now we're talking about personalization and like, how does it fit into like my identity as a brand? Even once you have a customer, you don't own that customer. My way to look at all of this is
it's the world's best email and retention podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you're interested in adding the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue to your digital ecosystem, be sure to subscribe today. Today, I'm joined with Matt Bertulli, who is the CEO and founder of Lomi and host of the Operators Pod. So it is actually a great honor to have you on. You've got another great podcast, and we will discuss a number of things, and actually just carry the discussion that he started and move it towards LTV, because there's some interesting LTV aspects of their business. So great to meet you, Matt.
Yeah, man, this will be fun.
First thing, you know what? Like you say, a lot of people are aware of you in the space, so maybe this doesn't need to be the biggest. But can you just tell us about the path that led you to where you are, and where you see that path might be going in the future?
Yeah, I run a quasi holding company. We have two brands. One is called Lomi, Lomi.com, and another one's called Pela Case, just Pela Case, some people say, Pela Case.com. We started with the case business. So we make you can see this, but we make a material that we commercialized into a phone case. This material is made with plants. It's like the first of its kind. It's compostable. It's like the most sustainable case on the planet. It's also just the nicest feeling material out there. So it's just a plastic alternative, right? And out of that business, we birthed this machine behind me right now is Lomi, which is like a modern day like garbage disposal is the way to think of it. So like it's a robot for your trash, which is something that I just like really wanted in my life. So we built it. And our major path to market for both brands, we launched both brands direct to consumer. So like very heavy paid acquisition, content focus, like organic, paid social. And then like with Lomi, which makes us interesting is we also have a pretty meaningful Costco roadshow business where we sell the product in person. So like we're omni-channel in both brands. Like we're in retail in both brands. We're online in both brands. We're on Amazon in both brands. We kind of sell everywhere. Scope of business, like Pela Case and Lomi together, like we have more than 2 million customers globally. So we serve like a pretty decent sized audience globally. So yeah, man, I just live in consumer. And then I'm one of the 4 dummies that has this podcast called The Operators. And we have another show that we spun out called The Marketing Operators. And we just talk, and I live all things consumer. I love consumer. Like anything and everything that has to do with consumer. I've been in it my whole life, and it's a lot of fun.
As well, most of my career has been consumer, but I did jump out and do a 5 or 6 year stint of B2B. Fascinating, because you're marketing a human, you're marketing a salesperson rather than a shopping cart. And then, humans do not interact like shopping carts, but agreed, similar background. Thank you for that intro. So when this came to me from, within the kind of the Pilot House and the D2C team, I looked through your site and noticed that you have both an accessories line and you've got this product subscribe portion of your business. And I'd like to tease into that product subscribe and talk about how these things lead to LTV. So first of all, let me just ask out of the gate, is retention a big part of your business?
Well, in Lomi, yes. I guess like in both brands, yes. So the interesting thing with our company is on the Pela side of like the Pela brand and that product line, retention for us is like I see a customer every 2 or 3 years. So it's on their phone upgrade cycle is like the majority of those customers. Now, 20% of our customers are fashion buyers. They buy multiple cases in a year. So like there is some element of it, but like by nature, that product line isn't an aggressive LTV business. It's not like if you look at like the spectrum of like consumer goods, there's consumables on one end, and then over here you've got dummies like me who like sell something that you don't buy a lot of. So like that's the Pela side. The Lomi product and Lomi brand is inherently an LTV business. So like it's a device that also has a subscription backend where you replace the carbon filters to keep it from smelling, right? So and there's like an app to that machine which measures your carbon footprint from usage. Like it's a whole interactive experience. Like I said, it's a very modern version of the garbage disposal or a garburator or whatever you want to call those things. So like in that business, we think a lot about retention. Like we're very cohort driven. We're always looking at like, what is the subscription business? What's the price point? What's the service delivery? How often should we send product out? How much control does a person have over it? The whole thing. Like what's the user experience? Like what's the value of being a subscriber to Lomi? Like with warranty and service and priority support and like all these other things. Like how do we just create a better customer experience? So it is very like LTV driven, I guess. Like the strategy is like lifetime value of a customer is super important. It is in both, but like really measurably important in Lomi.
One of the other things I saw, and there's like all these different kind of flashbacks from earlier in my career, because you've actually also got this trial marketing portion, right?
Well, yeah, we offer people like what we call like a risk-free home trial. So it's like if you don't like it in the first 90 days, you can send it back. Like that's like we're a no questions asked, try it out kind of business. Cause like we're marketing against a disposal. Like it's a product that's like 30 years old. Like people know what they are. Some people love them. Some people hate them. Actually, the way I've been described garbage disposals is like you love them until they break and then you hate them. Cause like they need plumbers and electricians and like the maintenance sucks. If Lomi is like the counter to a disposal, then what are the things that like we have to get people introduced to it? And one of the things we came up with is like you need to be able to confidently trial it, right? So it's like you buy it, you take it home, you try it out. I think like 98%, 99%, they keep it. Like it's a great product. But yeah, some element of it is like you got to remove friction, man. Like otherwise people look at it like that's not what in their mind, a disposal is something that goes under the sink, and we make this like beautiful thing that sits on your counter. So it's a different way to look at it.
Putting myself in your shoes, my concern is like obviously potentially there's this kind of unholy valley where they're in this trial period. They haven't subscribed yet, right? And you're kind of just you're just up in the air hoping you don't lose money. So what are the things that you're doing to get you through that period?
Well, you buy it and you're like buying the product and becoming a subscriber on day one. So it's like they're paying for it. I don't just send it home free, right? Like you got to buy the product. It's just that we take the risk. Our risk that we're taking is if they don't like it, if the experience isn't good, we'll take it back. Like that's the real risk, right? The cash, there's no like cash risk because the customer has to buy the damn thing to get it. And it's just whether or not they keep it. So like that's sort of the agreement that you make with the customer with this kind of program.
So it's a returns rate kind of issue. Like hopefully my returns rate doesn't get blasted out.
Totally. It's like you got to make a good product experience. Otherwise, you're going to sell a lot of them, which you've paid a lot of money in marketing to get those people. So if they don't stick around, then you kind of screw up. Like so, it really is a retention game. It's like great product first, great product experience first, and then it's like ongoing value delivery is how we look at the retention angle. So it's like, what am I giving them in exchange for their subscription long term? And we have subscribers now that are like, our oldest cohorts are 2.5 years old. So we kind of know like when we've done a good job of providing value and when we haven't. Like we've got some cohorts that have aged terribly and some that have done really well.
So how much of that value that you're adding is like kind of informational content, and how much of it is, hey, the way the subscription is working very well?
So in the first version of Lomi, the subscription was like purely filters, right? In version 2 of Lomi, which is what we sell right now, which is a connected device, it's filters plus there's like a whole app experience. Now you don't pay for the app. Like if you aren't a subscriber of Lomi 2, like you could still use the app, but our thesis has been like you will stay a subscriber of the filters. You're more likely to stay a subscriber on Lomi 2 because the overall experience is nicer. Like the app is a remote control for the device. It tells you when the filters need to be changed. It's giving you like, here's how much trash you've saved. Here's your carbon footprint as a house. Like it's got a lot of feedback built into the app now, and that makes the device more sticky, which inherently then makes the customer more sticky. And the fact is like we can actually see how much people use the damn thing, which is that like also helps us optimize the subscription business to make sure that we're not under delivering product, right? People churn because they get too many filters or they stop using it. So it's like keep them using it and then give them the right amount of product at the right time. That's the key to LTV for us.
When I was working similar to this, it was actually in SaaS. It's interesting. This is a physical product, but we talked about first 5 minutes, and again, you're in this kind of trial. Let's call it trial. It's not really a trial, but so like, how is first 5 minutes? Do you know how first 5 minutes is affecting your retention?
So for us, it's actually the first 3 weeks. So the first 5 minutes of a Lomi is like you're unboxing it, you're setting it up. So we've made that process really easy. There's the first moment that matters. So like in SaaS, it's about usage. So like with SaaS, you're sitting down and using the product for a while. If you look at it, like Lomi is like, it's a disposal. So I fill it with food waste and then I push a button. And the moment that we care about is that like get up in the morning, because this thing is like meant to sort of run while you sleep, right? Like the robot works while you go to bed. When you get up in the morning and it's like this bucket of food waste is now like this little tiny pile of dirt that's left, that magical moment is what we really designed everything around. Is like the initial feedback is like within 24 hours of unboxing this thing, like you see the impact of what you just did. Like this little machine, this little robot ate my trash while I slept.
So
right?
So it would be like first morning, the way you might call
First
that is
morning.
first morning.
That's the thing that we like we even put a clear lid on the machine so that people could see it working. Like, oh, look at the little robot, like it's doing its thing. That kind of like feedback loop and the fact that like you fill it, you start it, you fill it, you start it. That's kind of why we designed it that way, because we knew that the product would be successful if it became habitual. The best product in the kitchen is the coffee maker, because it's like you're selling a legal drug. So like the greatest consumer, hardware subscription business ever is Keurig or Nespresso. Like you've got a device that you sell, then you have pods that you buy forever because you're selling them a legal drug. Now trash is not a legal drug. There's no way to make trash addictive, but we focused on the most things that people buy in a home don't get used every day. Right? So like most smart home tech doesn't actually get used every day. Or if it does, it's like super passive. Like your thermostat can be a smart thermostat, but it's really passive. Like I have not touched mine in 6 months. I only touch it if it breaks. Lomi was like, okay, we want to make something that lives in the kitchen. And since it's trash, it's like they're going to use it every day. It's closer, in form factor, you look at it, and it's like, that's the size of a coffee maker or a blender or like stand mixer, like a typical like countertop appliance. But it gets used as much as the dishwasher. It gets used as much as a fridge, right? So the design of the product and the habit that you're trying to establish looks a lot more like a large appliance or a large, something with a lot of utility than it does something small. So we have to think of, to me, retention, just the broad bucket of retention, starts with product. retention marketing, you should just go talk to your product team. That's like step one, especially in consumer goods. It's no different than in SaaS. In SaaS, you can iterate a lot faster, do things like you can deploy changes every day. It takes me 3 years to make one of these things from scratch. So like the R&D cycles are way different. But it's still like retention starts with product. There is no other way around that. Like I can't meaningfully move retention on Pela Case because it's a product problem. Like, and it's not even that it's my product that's the issue. It's the category, man. Like the consumer has a buying cycle in this category. I'm a fool to try to move it. I can do a little bit, but like there's no chance, you know?
Yeah, understood. Well, look, interestingly, I mean, when I first started this pod, I'm just like I'm a channel head at Pilot House. I just was doing a whole bunch of talks on the pod, and finally they said, "Hey, why don't you just do one? Because it's like an open space." And they were saying, "Well, look, are you email or no? You keep on saying customer. Are you email or customer retention? Like these are like, I'm just going to be both, right? But absolutely, you can't just." So many people, this is primarily an email pod, but so many people just think about email. And the first thing I do when I analyze a client, a potential client or whatever, is I just look at, well, how much of your incremental is coming from repeat buyers versus new buyers through any channel. And again, you're saying product is a channel, which is what
it's the thing that this is like, I've watched brilliant email marketers try to like move the dial on returning revenue. And the reality is like you're in a product category that's just inherently difficult to do that. As a brand, you have to look at like, I say start with the product because like this could be one of those things that you don't want to invest huge dollars in retention if your product is difficult. Like it's just inherently not built that way. Right now, if you sell something like underwear or socks or clothing, like things that are somewhat like either fully consumable or quasi-consumable, like partially consumable, then yeah, retention, like email, SMS, retargeting, like there's certain things that like certain channels that will come in play with retention, that all that stuff starts to matter a lot more. But like on Pela Case, that business survives based on like how many new customers can I go out and I get in a day. That business grows or shrinks based on like percentage of new customers versus percentage of repeat customers in a given month. Like that's it. It's a very difficult business. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's so difficult because like we have no recurring revenue. We have very little. We're big enough now with millions of customers that our repeat customer revenue is sizable, but that took 8 years. Lomi comes out of the gate. It's like every user I acquire, 85% of them become a subscriber. And I have like strong net revenue retention at the end of 12 months. So like it's somewhere in the middle of like one-time purchase and subscription, and consumable, consumable. The dream is like, and they're harder for other reasons, but like you want to sell, like Mike, my co-host on the pod, runs Simple Modern. He sells a difficult product, which is steel drinkware, insulated steel drinkware, massive business. And then he just launched an electrolyte powder. So he's like more difficult to get it going because it's an electrolyte powder and it's crowded and it's competitive, but it is consumable. So like once I get somebody to like it, they will buy a ton of it in a year.
Is it subscribe as well?
Oh, he'll subscribe. Yeah, right now it's like Amazon, subscribe and save. Like that's the big thing. But like my buddy Chris runs Athletic Greens, or AG1 is what they're known as now. Like that business from day one was like, no, you buy and subscribe to the AG1 way of life. So like LTV is their whole game. They pay X amount up front for a customer and they're operating on payback windows. So like there's such a spectrum of product categories with consumer and retention and LTV that like that's why the topic is fun, is you can slice and dice it in so many ways, right? But it also makes it like you cannot listen to broad advice on this topic because it's so category dependent.
First of all, you just nailed almost like the entire purpose of this podcast, right? I mean, I'm here to speak to, ultimately I'm here to speak to potential Pilot House clients, although I do try to disseminate the best information I can for my audience because I love you all. And you nailed my entire message, right? Which is, so I wonder if you can, just tell me now, you've now launched, I would say not really, a retention business in the way that I've kind of thought about it here. And then you've launched clearly a retention business. So bottom line, which one would you want to launch again? Would you want to launch a retention business again or not? You know what I mean?
Long term, like personally, right? Like I've built and sold companies, and now I'm very like family holdco, personal holdco focused. So like I just love I just love consumer. So like long term, I'm gonna build more brands. That is like this is kind of the work I like to do. I just like consumer. I'm working on a new one right now that is like entirely a consumable. Like it's full on. It's in health and wellness. It's a consumable. It comes with a whole other set of challenges, right? So like if a business, it's a sliding scale. Like on one end you have like how easy is it to acquire a customer today, and then the other end it's like how great is the lifetime value of that customer. And when you start off like all things equal at day one or day zero, the more lifetime value potential, the harder it is to acquire on day one, right? The less, the easier it is to acquire on day one and cheaper.
And this is just kind of like a universal law you've noticed.
I think it's like, it's one of those like laws of physics that very rarely do you break it.
It's a really good model, by the way. That's a great way to simplify the whole thing.
There's exceptions to this, but like, man, I haven't seen too many. Like I know the acquisition cost of like an Athletic Greens customer loosely, or like a Butcher Box customer, like these very subscription heavy businesses. I know what those CAC numbers look like, and I know what their day one CAC to LTV in the hole that they're in. I know a lot of friends that have like hardcore consumable businesses and how difficult it is to get a user on day one and how long it takes for them to get paid back. So like I would still, even with all that difficulty, I would still say like my preference would be to build something that has like inherent consumable elements to it and the potential. It doesn't even need to be subscription. Like it's just how consumable is the product, how sticky is it, and the category, not even the product, like the category, because that matters a lot. I would still go over there before I would enter like another category like phone cases, or another, my co-host on the show is Sean from Ridge. Like he sells a wallet, phone cases and wallets, like terrible category. They're big in that they're big markets, but these customers don't buy often, right? So like I would still prefer something that somebody buys a lot of, even though it might be difficult on day one.
Yeah, and I mean, so one of the reasons I was excited to have you on was kind of my background is a lot of fashion. So I'm sure my audience has heard me over and over and over again talk about how to do the seasonal drop and just kind of structure that.
We do drops with Pela every week. Like I do design drops. Like this is like a ski case. This is a mountain biking case. Like we design drop every week.
But there's no season. Like you say, it doesn't. You're just basically you go as loud as you can to as many people as you can and pick off anybody who's ready, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, fashion's an interesting animal. Like again, like there's just so much spectrum of variety, I guess would be the way to put it. Fashion apparel brands like that sort of world, you have like the basics, where like they sell these evergreen basics. It's like white t-shirts and black t-shirts and denim and underwear and socks and like things that you can just like people will ultimately like inherently buy a lot of. And then you have like the actual like over here is like fashion, which is changing all the time. It's like there's consumer taste and there's trends, and it's so local too, right? Like what works in Canada versus the USA versus Mexico versus the UK. And it's like, yeah, it blends a bit, but not really. So like that category, if that's like you coming out of that I find that category so hard. That's like one of the few I won't go into.
Yeah, it's
even
rough.
though I love it. Like I think like it's such an important consumer goods category.
Are you from Vancouver? Because you said you were in Whistler with the guys.
Oh, I was in Whistler with the guys. I live in Kelowna, so I'm in interior.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Indochino, but I was like working in Indochino.
Yeah, so my buddy Drew is the CEO at Indochino.
Nice.
I know it well. It's like, that's what I mean. I've got a lot of friends in that world, right? I've just been in this e-commerce game for so long, and it's such a big category of consumer goods is like broad bucket apparel. even like if you could like lump footwear into there, like
Oh, yeah, of
huge.
course. Well, I say jewelry and apparel. I see those essentially as the same thing, right? So you could lump in, and what lumps it in is it's about how it makes you feel, but like, a psychological how it makes you feel, and there are seasonal drops. You've got your birthstone, hey, this month is agates or whatever, right? Like anything that fits that, I lump in there. And obviously sit back and let the recommendations do the job. You know what I mean? Like there's just a
Yeah, yeah,
playbook,
for sure. Yeah.
right?
We have some element to that on Pela. Like on a utility basis, it's very seasonal in that our sales go up whenever like when there's new iPhones or
Yeah,
there's new Google
yeah.
Pixels. So we have seasonality in the business, in Q4, big phone buying season. So like it's like we follow sort of phone buying trends, but then on the other side of that business, it's very fashion oriented. So like we design around trends, like if a color is blowing up, we can go after that color. If it's like last year in Q1, it was like this whole coquette trend on TikTok where it was like all about like these light blue bows and ribbons and all these like TikTok girls were buying this stuff. And like we designed cases around that trend and they just took off. That business, like the interesting thing is we have seasonality and drop, like those like drop mechanics of a brand. We can totally lean into it. Dude, like put it this way. We saw that as a lever in that brand early. And 5 years ago, we built in Kelowna our own manufacturing facility to manufacture phone cases on demand and print them. Like, so I injection mold and print in Kelowna just so that we could ride trends quickly, right? So I don't have inventory that dies. We make it on demand. And it's like if something's exploding on social media or like the Oscars are coming up, if something goes nuts at the Oscars, like we could actually respond within 48 hours and have a product in market and selling and shipping.
Yeah, that's cool. No, but that's immediate. But then you also have time when there's a new iPhone coming. You have all this time. So what are you doing when you have all this time? Like, are you doing anything for that brand? For that brand, are you just dropping really good looking stuff?
Yeah, that's it. You're just like the game of case. It's like $20 billion TAM, highly competitive, very commoditized. We've come at that market with different value angles that are unique to us, like the combination of things, what makes us unique. The first one we started with was like our case is compostable. So like we're the only zero waste, you can feel good about buying it product. Then it was like, oh no, the material is amazing. Like people just love to hold it. It feels so much better than plastic. So we kind of came at that category that way. But the important thing with that category is like buying behavior is either dictated by I just bought a new phone or I'm getting a new phone. Not even I just bought one, but like if you buy a new phone, in my house, like when I get a new phone, my wife gets my old one, right? And like phones get passed down.
My mom gets my old one.
Yeah, like mom, like my sister-in-law gets one. It's like whatever I'm going to do with the old phone. So like there's all these moments that happen inherently which triggers the purchase of a case. That's the trigger. And 80% of phones have a case on them. So like it's a big category. That's part of it. Then the other part of it is like the last 5 years, 8 years, the category has become more and more fashion accessory oriented. So like your case is very much a part of your identity. And some people, fashion and accessories is a very big part of how they like run their lives, right? Dude, Jordan, I have customers, I'm not kidding, that have like 20 to 30 different cases for their current phone model.
Yeah.
Like they're just changing them. Like they change their shirts.
This reminds me of an audit I did, and it was just unbelievable. It's I'm not sure what happened with the company. I haven't looked them up. I just audited them, and it was like a carrying case for your dog. You put your dog in a little case, right? And in the audit, she said that she talked to a financier who said, "Look, I can't figure out any reason why someone would buy more than one of these, so I'm not going to invest."
Sure.
And I did the audit and said, like, your repeat rate's like 45%, and you haven't even done anything for retention. This is not a dog carrier. It's a fashion accessory, right? It's an accoutrement. And I was just shocked that a financier didn't get that.
Dude, one of the things I learned from Mike at Simple Modern doing the pod with him is like, I had no idea, which is sort of silly to say this, but like I had no idea how much drinkware people buy. And it's funny, like it never really dawned on me that like the buying habits of people in this category, like, and then I looked in my own house and I have a drawer in my kitchen, like a whole like pot drawer full of different flavors of like mugs and cups and tumblers and like all this crap that we've just bought over time. And I'm like, man, drinkware is a real, you buy a lot more. Now, functionally and from a utility, like if I was a minimalist, I could get away with like this one thing. It's made of steel. I don't need 5 or 10 of them. But they got turned it like Stanley turned them into fashion accessories, and so did Yeti. And so like the category, I've been thinking about this. Like I wonder if all categories as they mature, they just become fashion. Like, you know, it's like where colors and styles and designs, and then you get into licensing from Disney and all the other. Is like, does everything just devolve into fashion?
Well, design is the art of solving problems, and once all the problems with the product have been solved, the only problem is how do I get noticed? So that I've designed.
It's like personalization.
Reinforce that, yeah.
Right? Which then goes into the whole like the LTV thing. The pleasant surprise to Pela is how big of a customer base we have and how often they come back. We built the business on like we're going to see people like every 4 or 5 years, right? Like that's just. Phone cycles, upgrade cycles are dragged out now. People don't upgrade their phone every year. But we definitely we way outperform the industry on the number of people who do come back and buy the product. And that's like, I think less to do with us and more to do with, I think because we have a good product, because we take care of the table stakes, what's happening is we're just catering to personalization and identity for people with design.
You're a subcategory. And so you have way less competitors. I mean, going to Best Buy, it's like just
black and clear. Right? You go to a retail store, it's like black case, clear case, get out. They don't want to talk to you about like design. So that definitely helps. But I do think I think you're right. I think a lot of product, once the actual features and benefits and the meaning of the product has like kind of been exhausted, now we're talking about personalization and like how does it fit into like my identity as a user of this product. Physical goods. Obviously, there's different types of goods, but like physical goods, non-consumable physical goods, I think it goes there. But man, like you even see it, like how many different licensed boxes of cereals have you seen in a grocery store? Like you got the Disney Cheerios and the Marvel Cheerios. Like they do it too. You know, it's still the same damn Cheerio in the box, but that's how they do it. So
I would love to just move this a little bit back to, although this has been great, by the way, this is like a wonderful retention chat for the non-retention podcast. But if we can bring it back to a little bit of technicals, to kind of wrap this whole thing up, you were chatting with our team elsewhere about optimizing, I think just optimizing your funnel, moving people, through different stages, maybe moving people from paid, getting them into owned, that kind of thing. Now, I wonder if you could maybe just really quickly summarize what a bit of that discussion was that you had, and then let's shift it to, okay, well, let's say someone made it all the way down your funnel. How are you going to talk to them? Are you talking to them with just the broad reach? Do you speak to them differently? How are you technically thinking about making them repeat? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the short of this is like what we were chatting about is this idea. I believe in this idea that as a brand, even once you have a customer, you don't own that customer. So this idea that it's like you get their email address and you get them as a customer, that somehow there's ownership over this person, like you don't own this customer, not at all. So if you can get your head around that as a core belief, as like a marketer and as a brand builder, then you can start to you just sort of zoom out and you look at acquisition and retention through this lens. Our approach, or my sort of way to look at all of this, is you got to produce great content that you've earned your place in that person's life repeatedly across all channels. It's like the everything everywhere all at once. Like that, to me, that is how we look at just content and media. That's how I look at acquisition. That's how I look at retention. It's so like our company and our team, like we have an in-house, like centralized, like we just produce content team. So like we need to make things that people want to watch. and they want to click on and they want to engage with. Whether I'm putting that content into like organic social, paid search, PR, like whatever it is, man, like it's going into emails, I can send out SMS, I can put it into a direct mail. Like it doesn't matter. The muscle is make great content that people want to read and consume, read or watch.
Does that mean that, regardless of where someone is we were actually just having this discussion today. It's not a funnel. We had a little snake, and it's like one of the snake eats its tail.
Yeah, dude, it's not a funnel. No, funnels is it's a stupid marketing moniker that we created some time ago as an industry, and like that's not how the consumer works. Like they don't go like, well, I'm in step 6 now. Like like I started at step 12 and I've made my way to step 6, and when I get to step 1, I'll buy. Like it's not how the customer works.
And so do you think then that all of your marketing content is based around growing the total addressable market, and that's, really high level stuff, and you're not really speaking to your customer differently than you are speaking to a non-buyer?
Well, I look at things like there's content that you make to reach people. Then there is content that you make to retain people. And then there's content that you make to sell them something. So like on a weekly basis, when we come out with new designs for our cases, like that's content to sell them those designs. Now, in that same week, if you look at like our Pela Case Instagram account, there's like 600,000 people that follow us, and they watch, like we record all of our work in our office. We screw around. The team has fun. Like people will follow me in a day in the life of my job. We post all kinds of stuff, and that's really like retention and reach, right? So like when you come to the brand, whether you're a customer or you're thinking about buying, you can get to know us through this kind of content. And that's really important too. And then above that is like where we play in paid, which is like and this is like where where ideas become very important. Like quality and variety of ideas, super, super important to brands. You've got to, and this is like, I think this is a machine that everybody needs to build. And this is both an acquisition and a retention machine that is very important in a company, especially in a world of like that's AI first, where production is not the commodity, is not the valuable asset. It's actually the idea. We just think a lot about like, what are the messages that we have to put out in the world that get reach? So what can I send out on the internet that a lot of people are going to like, click, share, comment on, engage, like all that stuff.
Just
that
organic boost.
Yeah, man. Like you just want, which is then you get good at just like writing scripts and coming up with like, and meeting moments, right?
And you're not really segmenting your audience a whole lot is what you're saying. It's basically, it's a flat situation.
No. Segmentation is like almost always a waste of time. Almost always. Unless you are a massive, dude, this is where like, this might be controversial. Segmentation in email is almost always a waste of time unless you're just a huge company where like, and you've got insane breadth of categories that you sell across. Like, yeah, then you should probably do some segmentation. But like most D2C brands that are doing like 10 million or 20 million a year and you sell one thing in one category, you probably shouldn't be segmenting your audience a whole lot. Like,
yeah, we do our segmentation. It's a life cycle, and it's actually for inboxing. We want to make sure that we send, people who will consume more messages, we send them more messages, right?
Yeah, don't get fancy. It's like, no, just get to the damn inbox.
That's right. I say it all the time. Don't get cute.
Like, don't get cute. When it comes to like what we're producing, we definitely think, at least I do, and I know some people on my content team, like they think this way, which is like, who am I making this for? Am I making this thing, whether it's a video, an image, am I making it to like reach completely new people? Or am I making it to show the people I already know, and I'm just trying to keep them engaged and keep them entertained, right? Like everything just comes down to like, are you entertaining somebody or educating somebody? That's it. It's like, are you giving them value? And that's usually how value shows up on the internet. And that to me is like, that's marketing. You can call it acquisition, you can call it retention, but like, that's just good marketing.
Okay, you know what? We're at 40 minutes. I should be respectful of your time. That was a super cool chat. That was the most retention-y chat I've had on the pod yet. There's a lot of email on here. We sell email, but it was great to meet you. Great to have you on the pod. Why don't you tell everybody again just how they're going to find you?
I'm everywhere. I'm on, like, if you want to actually message and whatever, go to X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. M.
Formerly
Bertulli
Twitter.
there. Yep. If you want to find our pod, it's 9 operators.com. Can't miss it.
Have a great week. Okay.
Cheers, Jordan. Appreciate it, man.
In the inbox late night, glowing screens see the light. Do-do-do, email, everything feels alright. Do-do-do-do.
Hey, entrepreneurs and spammers. Remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.